welcome again to the Just Economy Podcast. The Economy Podcast is sponsored by the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. We are a statewide membership organization, nonprofit, ensuring that the banks reinvest into the community per the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. My name is Cornell Cruz Jr. I am the Executive Director of the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida, and we are here to do another podcast today. So before I get to my guest from the Heart Gallery of Broward, a few announcements. One, thanks again for the wonderful response from the community on the Nonprofit Capacity Building Grant Project. We're in the process of reviewing and scoring those grants right now. We had 102 applications for that project, and although it may sound like that's a lot, it is. But this encourages us to go out and try to help fill the need, and it lets our grantors know or funders know that the need is there. So although everybody won't get funded, at least not this round, the important thing is that you applied, and we really appreciate you doing so. I'm going to be talking to funders all next week and the week following, hoping to get more investment into the fund so we can continue to finance this project and to support you as nonprofits. Next announcement is look for the flyer for the Bankers Roundtable. We'll be holding it October 8th. Looks like we're going to have it at the Betty Ferguson Center in Miami Gardens, right across from Hard Rock Stadium. So be looking for that flyer so you can RSVP for that very, very important Bankers Roundtable. What I mean by a Bankers Roundtable, well, the bankers are actually we're going to have several bankers on the panel. I'm looking at 6 to 8 to talk about the Community Reinvestment Act and how they plan to continue to reinvest in our communities, especially in light of what's going on with this administration. And then they're also going to talk about how to build relationships with them. So that's important in order to get funding from a particular, in particular the banks. How do you build those relationships? So they're going to be talking about all those things. It's going to be a panel discussion with some questions from the audience as well. So we look forward to that. That's going to be, again, October 8th, 10:30 a.m. at the Betty Ferguson Center in Miami Gardens. And then now we're on to the big thing. We're going to have our very special guest, and we want to welcome her today, Dr. Mary Kinirons. She's the Executive Director of the Heart Gallery of Broward. Thank you, Dr. Kinirons, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you. She's going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's huge in the community. Again, she's the Executive Director of the Heart Gallery of Broward. So before we jump into exactly what the Heart Gallery of Broward does, let's talk a little bit about you. I love to know people's histories. How did we get here? How did you get to be the Executive Director, or come to the point that you wanted to be the Executive Director of Heart Gallery of Broward?
So my husband is adopted, and we have always decided that when we had kids someday we were going to adopt. And that month we were matched with our 3 kids was the month I got offered this position at the Heart Gallery of Broward. So it all came full force of now working for an agency that we adopted our kids through, and I get to bring that passion and life experience to our mission and help us grow and be successful.
Okay, so that's incredible. So you actually did it before you actually did it.
Yep.
So you know the feeling, you know what goes into it, you know all the feelings that go into going through the adoption process and how huge the adoption process is. So I see that you're a doctor. You're a doctor of?
Organizational leadership. I have my educational doctorate.
Okay. Are you originally from South Florida?
No, I'm originally from Cincinnati. I moved down here in 2010. I wanted to live closer to the ocean since I scuba dive and wanted to just start fresh.
All right, yeah. Well, yeah, Cincinnati's kind of landlocked.
A little bit.
So I can see you. Welcome. Glad to have you down here in South Florida. This is a very, very important thing. As I said, this is near and dear to my heart because I was adopted myself as a baby, and was very, very lucky that my parents were able to to step in and adopt me like that. And before anyone asks, no, I don't know who my real parents are. It's never really dawned on me to even try to find out. I think the only people who are really concerned about it right now is my daughters. I have 3 daughters, and I think they're the only ones who are concerned about it because it doesn't faze me whatsoever. My parents were great, and I was very, very, very lucky. So, Dr. Kinirons, tell us a little bit about the mission of the Heart Gallery of Broward.
So the mission of the Heart Gallery of Broward, first and foremost, is to find adoptive families for our county's most difficult to place children. These are foster youth that nobody is stepping up for, which is primarily teenagers, sibling groups, Black children, LGBTQ children, and children with high medical need. And most of our kids are teenagers that are in our program. The very least, though, over the age of 8 years old. And if there's any youth that's younger than that, they're either medically needy or they're with a sibling group with older siblings. So it's a little more challenging to find them a family.
Wow, because you went through that yourself because you adopted 3 at one time, right?
Yeah, our oldest was 18, so she was an adult adoption. She's now 21 and engaged and has moved out to be on her own. And my boys are 13 going on 14 and 9.
Wow. So when you said something earlier that struck me is that if they're younger than 8, they usually come with other siblings, correct? Yeah. So is there a minimum age outside of that if they're single, if they're only one child? Is there a minimum age that Heart Gallery adheres to?
No, we help youth that have parental rights that are terminated, meaning they can't be reunified with their family, and nobody else has stepped up for. So maybe another family member considered it but couldn't come through. Their foster family, for whatever reason, can't come through. And there's no one else in their life that can come through. So those are the kids that end up in our program because nobody else has stepped up.
So were they with a parent or a guardian or a relative prior to that? And because you said something that confused me a little bit, that they're now liberated from their either their guardian or their parents, correct?
Yes.
So they were with a family member or a guardian before coming to you.
Yes. And some will still live with the foster family or guardian. Well, most of the time they're foster family. But for whatever reason, they just can't step up. And a lot of times that's just financial. A lot of these families just don't feel comfortable, or it's grandparents and they just can't take on a 2-year-old or an 8-year-old, and they may still want to be involved. My daughter wanted to make sure she remained in contact with her biological mom. And that was part of the adoption, is she wanted to make sure she chose a family that would be able to support that.
So that's interesting. So they usually maintain some type of relationship or contact with the relative or guardian?
It really depends on the situation. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it's the whole family is toxic and they just don't want a relationship with them. Sometimes they think they want a relationship with them, and then the adoptive family has to decide, are they going to be supportive and just be there for them if it falls through, or if they're going to be protective of them because of how dire the situation is, that they just make that decision that, once you turn 18, you can go talk to them if you want, but we're going to protect you until then.
Wow. I think the general population as a whole doesn't understand that or doesn't know that. I think that's interesting that they can still maintain contact with the guardian or, unless there's some dire circumstances, I'm sure, right? But I think that's very interesting that can still maintain that contact. Does your organization encourage that, or you let the child make that decision?
The main thing we encourage is the family should change their life around the child, not expect the child to change for their life. So whatever that means to the child, whether they want that contact or not, the family just should be there to support them and not be judgmental, because if you tear down their family, they are going to have a hard time connecting with you if they still hold that family on a pedestal. So really just got to meet your child where they're at and just be as supportive as you can. But if it's a dangerous situation, a situation where they could be taken advantage of, or they may try to take advantage of the new adoptive family, then they're going to protect them. They're going to make sure that they stay out of that situation.
So as you say all that, that sounds like Heart Gallery of Broward is doing a whole lot we as the general population don't understand. Wow. Wow. Okay, I'm just kind of struck because I mean you're how do you keep all of that? How do you keep all of that together? How is that possible for you to handle all of that? That sounds like a whole lot of dynamics for an organization to deal with. How do you do it?
Really, it depends on which families decide to get involved with us more deeply. We are more of an organization that takes care of the kids, has them out and doing youth activities, and sometimes we have adoptive families who are part of that process as volunteers. So, not the old school, here's a checklist and here's a name tag, and you put down who you're interested in and follow around these kids. Instead, it's they get out in the community, they go have fun, and these families are just there as volunteers. They don't talk about adoption, they just support the event. But it's successful. We have teenagers that get connected with families that may have never considered a teenager before, and they get adopted.
Okay, so hold on a second. So you're saying prospective adopters, I don't know if that's the correct word, but prospective adopters also get to volunteer and participate in activities with these young folks?
Yes.
So how do you I hate to use the word recruit, but that's the only way I can think of at this time. So how do you recruit those families who either may or may not want to adopt, right, but want to be involved? How does that process work?
So our biggest partner is ChildNet. They're the ones who do the family finding to a degree. What we do is we help reach out to more of a population than they may be able to reach out to. How we started was having physical galleries out in the community that shows photos and bios of these youth. And that's how we're called the Heart Gallery, because it was a gallery of photos capturing the heart of the child. What it used to be is you'd go to a DCF office, you'd open a book, and you'd see photos of the kids when they first entered care. They're disheveled, they're, malnutrition, whatever it might be. So you can imagine that was hard to inspire someone to adopt. So through our galleries and through education and speaking engagements and getting out in the community, we're spreading the word of, we need more families, and we get some families that way, but also combating the stigma of adopting these kids, because a lot of people are like, I don't want to deal with it. They're going to come with so much trauma. I'll get by that if I get an infant, and I'll adopt these, whether big or small. They're going to have some sort of trauma through adoption, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Okay, so let's talk about stigma. That's got to be a big challenge to get past the stigma.
Yeah.
So as you recruit families, and I'm sorry I keep using that word, but it's the only one I can think of. As you recruit these families, is it difficult to get past the stigmatization of the children?
Mostly our teens. It is very challenging for our families to be interested in our teenagers. Obviously, the media and movies and things like that, they show them as disruptive, burn the house down kind of kids. And they're really worried, which I completely understand. Teenagers are not for everybody. And whenever someone comes to talk to me about whether or not they would be suited for adoption from foster care or even older adoption from foster care, I encourage a lot of self-reflection. And I also encourage maybe going to therapy as a family to really assess that internal, are we going to be able to shape our lives around the fact that there will be issues, but we can stand by them and give them the support they need. And so it's hard to really evaluate yourself for that, but it needs to happen.
But I'm really glad that you mentioned therapy. What amazes me is that parents always forget that they were teenagers at one time too. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I went through it with my three girls, and their moms. I would tell them, okay, wait a minute, you're having issues with one of the girls. But did you forget that you used to be a teenager? Mm-hmm. When I tell my girls all the time, I said, there's nothing that you're doing that I didn't try. Everything that you're doing, I've done before, tried to get away with it before, especially stuff you try to get away with.
Yeah.
I've done everything that you've tried to do. I've done it. Every generation after generation after generation has done it over and over again. It amazes me that parents forget. I guess you figure once you become an adult that you never were a teenager. You skip right from elementary school to after college graduation. You know what I mean? And now you're a full blown adult, and we forget that we were teenagers too. And teenagers, you're learning, you're growing, you're starting to do stuff on your own. getting influenced by friends. All those things are happening. So it's interesting that you mentioned them going to the parents, prospective parents, going into therapy. Is that mandatory that they go to some type of therapy?
It's not mandatory, but I'll tell you, the moment our children entered our house, which was before being finalized with adoption, we started in therapy because we knew it would be a rough transition, especially because of their attachment to their foster family. And the one thing we had going for us is our teenager is the most grounded and beautiful soul I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. She really helped ground us and ground the boys through the transition. And she's just been a shining light. And I will say, though, adoptees have a very hard time with integrating into a new family. And we just shared recently on our social media for National Suicide Days, adoptees are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than biological children. And they don't know how to deal with their trauma. And some parents will parent them as if they don't have trauma. And I'll tell you, that's the most challenging thing as a parent. Are they acting out because of trauma? Or are they acting out because they're a teenager? Because both get parented a little differently. And it's one of the reasons we've had the kids in therapy. They've been with us 3 years, and we keep it up. We're in family therapy now to help us be better parents, because you never know what kind of parent you're going to be until you're a parent.
This is true. This is true. I don't think no one is prepared to be a parent until you're actually a parent. You're actually holding them and having to deal with the stuff of a whole nother person every day. I think any of us are prepared for that. So I want to go back to the question about trauma. Therapy. I'm sorry. So is it a requirement before adoption that parents seek therapy?
No, it's just something I very much encourage. And the youth, if they're younger than, I want to say 14 or 13, they will usually get mandated therapy while in foster care. But once they hit a certain age, it's their choice. And a lot of times they choose, they don't want it, they don't trust, they don't open up, they rather, devil they know rather than the devil they don't know kind of situation. Gotcha. That's why some choose to age out for the same reason too, because they know they can trust themselves.
So as you recruit these prospective parents, is there a minimum age for the parents in order to apply to adopt a child?
I don't know the exact limit on age. I think it's mid-20s. Usually you want to make sure it's an established family with an established career, has sustainable money coming into the house, and making sure it's a place that once you have kids in your home, you can really supply what they need. Because when you adopt, you get a stipend from the state. But I'll tell you, that was just enough to cover aftercare. It's not enough to cover everything you're going to get with having a new child in the house.
Okay, wait a minute. Back up. You get a stipend from the state when you adopt a child?
Yep. So you get an adoption stipend until they turn 18.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of benefits that come for these kids. They actually get free college in the state of Florida for any state school until they're 28. They get health insurance, Medicaid until they're 18, or if they're 16, no, now it's 14 or older. If they age out, they get insurance until 23, I want to say it is. So they actually get a lot of benefits. My daughter who aged out also gets a monthly stipend from the state as long as she's in college, as well as every semester another amount of money through financial aid. So she's just been saving up money while she lives with us because we don't charge her anything.
Oh, this is great, and she's in college now.
Yes, she's in college now.
I didn't know all the benefits that are available for the adoptive children. That's impressive, and that's great, especially for a state like Florida. Don't get me started.
Yeah, and you can get a larger stipend if they're medically needy. So if they need a lot of extra care, you can negotiate a much higher stipend than if you're a kid that doesn't require that.
That's great. That's great. I truly didn't know that. So, I'm sorry, I'm stuck on the recruitment of the parents or prospective parents. So has it been difficult to recruit prospective parents?
It is. Most people want to do private adoption. They believe, they're going to have too much trouble with doing foster care adoption. A lot of families want that baby life. They want that baby experience. But there are some that can't afford it, and they don't even think about adopting from foster care until someone educates them about it. So that's why we're so focused on education out in the community to hopefully inspire more people to adopt from foster care. a lot don't realize all the benefits that also come with it to support them and their family. It's also why we expanded our programming into adoptee and adoptive family support, so we can really show them that they will not be alone if they choose to adopt from foster care.
So that's key. That I'm assuming that adoptive support of the families is something that's crucial for it to be a success. Correct?
Yeah, very much so. I am privileged in my position to know so many resources out the community. I've met so many executive directors and CEOs and learned about their programs. A lot of these families don't know where to start. Medicaid is very hard to navigate. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't necessarily know the medical background of a child. I only know my kids have bipolar history because my daughter knew. It was in none of their files. So now we know to look out for it. But there are a lot of these families that have no idea that there's mental health in the family and what to pay attention to as they get older.
Is it a requirement to disclose that information or no?
You're required to disclose anything that was in their file, but you change case managers all the time. We had some notes that said they had some older siblings that didn't care. Then some notes that said they didn't have any other siblings. Some said they weren't siblings. It was all just a jumble of, mismatched notes. So it's really hard to know what's true and what's not.
Wow, that sounds extremely stressful.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break, and we'll pick this up.
All right.